First of all, many thanks to Professor Johan and his team, and also to my colleagues and presentators. I am very thankful for the presentations. And if Archbishop Theodosi allows me, let us say, God bless Johan and Roxana.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, as you can see, this is the title of my communication, The Power, Science, and the Vulnerability of Religion, Two Ways to Truth. And what I'm doing is to use contemporary philosophers to get this approach, and I'm sorry for using the language of the American Empire, because every one of us esteems more our own language. And I will also use the artificial intelligence that Professor Claudia was speaking to us, which is only a large language model. So combining my presentation in natural language with the large language model of IA. And I think also that artificial intelligence, to establish the connection to what has been said, is a kind of farewell bid of the American Empire to humanity. As the Roman Empire gave us roads and language and right, the American Empire, which I think is in dire straits, to quote rock music, the American Empire also gives us artificial intelligence. And as you all know, in the 20th century, the most important philosophies, in the opinion of many, were the philosophies of language. We became aware, as Wittgenstein said, that the limits of my world are the limits of my language. But we can reverse the sentence. We can say the possibilities of my world are the possibilities of my language. And so I will have, as you can see, I used the Google Notebook platform of artificial intelligence to create slides. I think some of them are interesting, the others perhaps not so. Well, that's a vulnerability. But the main thing that I want to explain is this. Modern thought gave us a myth under which common sense is still straining. And the myth, as you can see, is this. We are used to saying that science make us see and make us understand what is near, what is here. And we are deviated, biased, to think that religion is about the distance, what is very far from us, invisible. And contemporary French philosophers, René Girard, Bruno Latour, and Michel Serre, which I will use, say in a very strong way that this myth must be broken, and we must strive in the direction that science is about the distant and the visibility, and religion is about presence and the near. So it's a reversion of science that is asked from us. And as in every philosophical procedure, as Socrates said, we must start from what we do not want to do, from ironia. And what we do not want to do is the so-called double-click illusion. The illusion that reality stands at the point of this, of a quick somersault that gives us reality. And as you can see here, the modern benchmark of truth that respects immediately and uniform access to information. This is a bias. We think that, oh, okay, I got information, and immediately reality is accessible to me. Quite the contrary. We need study, reflection. We need to painful work not to have what philosophy calls a category mistake. We are used to common mistakes, but more important to philosophy are the so-called category mistakes. For instance, to speak of being as instead of speaking of ought to be. That's a typical category mistake. People, when are judgmental, they are always making this kind of category mistakes. And if we have trust in the words of our Savior, we know that we should not judge the world, but collaborate to save it. So, how does science operate to reaching the distant invisible? This is a good AI product. It is elegant. What do science do in laboratory? They take a rat. By the way, they must kill the rat. Hundreds, thousands of experimental animals. Then they take a slice of his brain. Then they do a lot of, with electronic microscopes and other processes of imageology, they take a translation of what happens in the slice of the rat's brain. Then they register what kind of impulses, and then finally, if they are lucky, they translate it into an academic paper, and the paper may be received or not. And science is this. Science is not about what is accessible to us. And particularly since the middle of the 19th century, when a lot of scientists, were amateurs, were individuals, like Cavendish, like almost all of them, science is now mostly a team action with very difficult protocols, be it exact science, be it human science. You remember some of the communications today were speaking about the difficulty, I think it was Professor Victor, the difficulty of living with data from census. So human science, natural science, they have all of them to reach something distant, invisible, and difficult to assess. On the contrary, what is religion? What is the religious language about? It's about creating presence. And, well, you see here the two people who are perhaps loving one another. For instance, if my wife Katerina asks me, do you love me? And I answer, I already said it yesterday. That's not a way of creating presence, because the language of presence must be renovated again and again. That's very important. And in this sense, we can see that the agape template is very different from the science templates. And that the religion experience needs a somersault, a break. Well, Kierkegaard spoke about it, that faith was about a leap in faith, a leap in faith because it is a transformation of ourselves, and that carries, of course, a lot of vulnerability. So this is the main point, and here I am more or less at the middle of my communication. That's more or less the point of saying that religion and science are two distinct regimes of enunciation. And you can see the goal of science, transport accurate information. The goal of religion, transforming ourselves. The direction of science, reaching the distant and absent. The direction of religion, representing the close. You just saw in the last liturgy of the Ascension Day that after Jesus ascends, comes an angel and he says, "What are you looking for? He's not here. He's not there. Go and do your mission. Go to Jerusalem and do your mission." So create presence, create relationship, and so on. So truth operates through different mechanisms in ourselves. It's a flow, it's a process. We cannot have freeze framing. And that, of course, is the main evolution of contemporary philosophy. As I was saying in my initial words, perhaps philosophy of language was the most important focus of many 20th century philosophers, Wittgenstein, Heidegger, Frege, others. But in the 21st century, or in the passage from 20th to the 20th century, we have our focus must be the philosophy of relationships, the philosophy of process, relationships that is in evolution, which is not static. And that is why the process of reference that we use in science is very distant from the process of creating proximity that is typical for religion. Of course, each science, economic has its methods, physics and other. I'm just speaking on the general framework of languages. And in this sense, we can see, and the image is interesting, the artificial intelligence image is interesting because what we call a fact is also the product what we can call, it's a Portuguese word indeed, feitiço, fetish. When the Portuguese went to Africa, they saw that the natives paid respect to what was called idols. And we do not have our idols. When we have the cult of the saints and of the martyrs, do the martyrs say everything will be good to them? So, what is a well-constructed fact? It is a fact that is accompanied by a well-constructed factish or language. And that's why we, as humans, are different from other animals, because we know how to transmit facts through a language and have well-constructed facts. And so there is no reason, no ground, no cause to have a conflict between science and religion as we were perhaps used to learn 50 or 40 years ago, and misplaced treatment of famous cases like the Galileo cases and other. There is no reason to be a conflict because the regimes of enunciation, the language utilized are very, very, very different. And now, an example through heart, and particularly through spiritual heart, the heart that wants to convey a religious message. And you see the big letters, art as mediator, requires an inner iconoclasm. Iconoclasm. We must broke the idols, the icons, to transform ourselves and see a greater truth than what is immediately visible. In Portuguese, but it does not function in other language, we have a distinction between lenda and legenda. There is no that distinction in English, neither in French. I don't know if there is in Romanian. What is a lenda? Or a legend, I think.
Legenda is, yeah.
It's a narrative.
Yeah.
But that in Portugal is called myth, lenda.
Mm-hmm.
And what is a legenda? A legenda, as you see in some paintings, or as you see in comic books, is how shall we read the narrative? So lenda is narrative. Legenda is the manual of instructions. How do we see this? How do we read this? How this operates and resonates inside of us? And so these are art examples. We'll go quickly through some 3 or 4 very well-known medieval and Renaissance paintings. You know, the Annunciation of Piero della Francesca. Apparently, the angel is speaking directly to Virgin Mary. But if you see the painter more closely, and that analysis has been made by a lot of specialists, the pavement, the floor, is different in different planes. So they are not in a face-to-face dialogue. The angel is always a mediator. And as the Greek word conveys directly, the angel is a messenger. And so the messenger transforms the one who receives it. Or the other picture, also very well known by Fra Angelico, the empty tomb. So you see the Holy Mothers, Mary Magdalene, the Mary, the mother of Jesus. They are very contemplating the empty tomb. And you see also perhaps a Dominican friar, perhaps Thomas Aquinas, one of the most known theologian and philosopher of the 13th century, pondering about what is this. So you see that this is a chronological impossibility. There is ancient times and there is medieval times. And then there is still the iconoclasm. The angel is, Jesus is not here in the tomb. Where is he? Perhaps inside ourselves, if you believe it and you follow it. And that's precisely the use of religious language. Not to convey information, but to create presence. This is a more elaborated explanation of the same, and this presentation stays with Johan and the organization, and you see Louis Marin, Daniel Larras, okay, specialists that are speaking about it. The very famous Pietà image of Michelangelo, that was the victim of an assault, as you may remember, with some full one that tried to broke indeed parts of the statue of La Pietà. But the irony of the story is that that full man, poor one, tried to broke a story of something that was already a broken art story, which is the Pietà. So the Pietà is the relating of something very sad, very tragic, which is not the final moment, but precisely Michelangelo, as all deeply spiritual creators, was able to convey this to us. We could go on, it's not necessary. Make your own experience with real religious art, and you see that what is transmitted, for instance, in the Caravaggio, this is he painted two scenes of the companions Emmaus. And myself, I think that the companions in the Emmaus is the gospel in just 1 verse. You are among us because you made us companions of yourself. And in this very realistic picture, which has even at the center, it seems a Flemish picture with fruit and that kind of bourgeois objects. You see the personage which Caravaggio took from the streets of Rome in Naples, and you see just the broken bread, which has, if you see it later, a very small ray of light that is transforming it. And now, for finishing, we pass to contemporary art. You may recognize here one of the most interesting images of the Andrei Tarkovsky movie, The Sacrifice. And this is someone who has lost everything. And this conveys a deeply spiritual urge to transform ourselves. Or you can contemplate this picture of Paul Klee, and it's much more abstract, but it evokes in ourselves thoughts and emotions. What is this sun about? Where does this door leads into? What is this house covering? So that's our reality and our lives. And I brought a picture of Katerina, my wife, that she recently saw, draw, and you can see also how can even abstract, non-figurative painting evoke in us what else is beyond us? What transformation does this require? This is about what we are doing in Fatra d'Orneiro. I'm speaking a Portuguese martyr. Well, a martyr that supposedly went to Portugal is very well known by the French name of Saint-Tropez, but indeed it's Saint Torpe. And to finish, this is what I wanted to convey. Truth is a continuing movement. We have truth in science, we have truth in religion. We don't need and we must even be against any conflict among them. Thank you.